Well, I like to think about cueing as slang.
Okay, slang.
It's,
Like,
it's,
all right,
it's,
my homie, what's up?
it's movement slang. It's a way. It's a shorthand. It's a way to get a kind of complicated topic compressed into one word.
Okay.
So.
Welcome to Kettlebell Corner. I'm Jeremiah. This is Roger. And then today we're going to talk about cueing. Why it matters, what is it, what should it do, and how it even applies to you, whether you're a coach or a practitioner. And as always, leave a comment or question down below. This isn't your first day on YouTube, and if it is, welcome. And you found the right Kettlebell podcast to listen to. So, why does it even matter, Roger?
Why does cueing matter?
Yeah.
Cueing is the attempt to get someone to do something.
I like this, brainwashing.
For you to,
Oh.
it's a way for you to think about something.
Okay.
So it's going to change the way you move.
All right.
A cue is a movement directive, and the way you conceive of a movement is going to influence how you move. So
certainly.
it's going to matter whether you are somebody who's giving cues or whether you are someone who's getting them. The way you think about a movement or a skill will influence the way that skill is executed.
Yeah, and these are things that are not only in just exercise, primarily exercise, that's obviously what we're talking about, but everything in life, you give somebody a cue to do something and hopefully they do it, just like you said, right?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. That's what we're going for, at least as coaches in the kettlebell world. We want you to do things a certain way so that you can get the most out of it.
And it's a fair analogy because cueing is really communication, and for communication to be effective, it needs to have certain characteristics.
Okay,
So,
all right. What are some of those characteristics?
Well, I like to think about cueing as slang.
Okay, slang. All
it's-
right, my homie, what's up?
It's movement slang. It's a way. It's a shorthand. It's a way to get a kind of complicated topic compressed into one word.
Okay.
So we were chatting a bit off camera. Some things that you'll normally hear. Cool.
All right, cool.
So most people know that it has come to mean a variety of things. It means acceptable. It means
right.
desirable.
Yeah.
It means neat.
Neato. It means chilly.
But what does any of that have to do with temperature?
Right.
You can look back and see, okay, well, I see the evolution of this term and how it's come to mean this, but it really doesn't have a one-to-one connection, and cueing doesn't need to do that either. It doesn't necessarily need to make sense. I'm not going to share them with you, but over the years, I've come up with some rather vulgar terms that are very effective.
Yes.
Vulgar cues for the right client to get the job done.
Yeah, it's all about the client sometimes, or the person you're in front of, maybe it's got to resonate, right?
So, if you think of a cue as a sort of slang term that may need to evolve, that may need to change, but also take this idea of slang, and I don't know if you've ever tried this. I've had people from other countries try and teach me their slang, and it makes zero sense. It's just utterly, I have no frame of reference. I've got no shared culture. Like it's completely unintelligible. And in many cases, I think coaches are running around giving cues that are as effective as
Yeah,
that.
because it's like essentially another language for somebody if
Sure.
they're not used to moving a certain way or they're not indoctrinated to all
Sure.
the terminology.
So what do you think a cue should do?
I think a cue, it should be shorthand, essentially to get you to do what you're trying to get somebody to do in the quickest and safest manner possible that really resonates with somebody, right? We also talked about, giving a directive for a movement, and we're going to give some examples as what we think are ready to go cues that people can use and maybe should use, and some things that people are using that they're not. But if you can't tell somebody, especially in the world where we coach a lot on video nowadays, and you submit stuff and you look and you review and you want to tell people like, hey, if you're doing this, let your arms connect to your body. Well, okay, so that's a good cue.
My arms are connected
But
to
if you
my
don't have a
body.
frame of reference, it can get a little crazy. Just perfect example of like the foreign language sort of thing. And you want to be able to take and first you may have to set it up for somebody, and then that cue then starts to make sense.
Sure.
And then you can use that cue. So it's sort of like a little process too, right?
Yeah, well, let's go back to the movement piece, because a cue should elicit a particular movement. If a cue gives you an idea, it's probably not a good cue. If it doesn't immediately connect with a feeling, something that you can feel and execute in your body, if it doesn't change the way you physically move, it's probably just an idea and not something that we really want.
Some ideas are good and some are bad.
Well, so let's go to this idea, like the I call them out of the box cues, things that are just ready right out of the box.
Okay,
So
I like this.
most people, and there's no 100% any of this stuff in anything I've ever said. There's no always, there's no never, and I realize the
You can't live in
complications of
you
any
can't
of
live
those
in
statements.
absolutes. I learned this a long time ago from this same guy.
But the idea of out of the box cues, if you tell someone to stand up really fast, most people are going to get that.
Yeah.
And then if you see them stand up fast, but not fast enough, stand up faster. There usually isn't faster than that good.
As fast as you can. Now faster.
That's an example of an out of the box cue that should immediately get someone to change how they feel or how they move. You may realize that someone has a faulty conception of a movement, a bad idea of an exercise. And one common one that I work with, I do a lot of what I call second generation coaching. So I have someone who had a coach.
Oh, okay. I like
And
this.
it's like they got some stuff or it didn't go well, and then I end up with them and we reimagine some things and we repattern some things. So a common one I'll get is someone who is obsessed with the idea of a hinge for a swing, or someone who's really like, oh, hips forward. And that is usually not a good cue. It may work. A good cue is one
To a
that
certain
gets,
point, right?
Yeah, a good cue is one that gets the job done. But what will often happen is when people are obsessed with the hips, they will shoot forward independent of everything else. They lose track of the ground, which is actually causing the force that makes the kettlebell swing. So the notion of hips forward doesn't work. But when I say stand fast, stand up faster, I don't need to draw their attention to their feet. Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do. There's a problem with that.
Especially if you don't know where your feet are.
When you draw the attention to the feet, there's some pretty interesting research that shows that muscles contract differently from when you focus on the center of the body versus the extremities. So if you're getting someone to focus on the feet and not the center of the body, you may get a different sensation. However, if I've got someone who's really obsessed with this hips forward idea, there's not a lot of motion in the knees, they're leaning back, sometimes they're arching their backs. Sometimes I do have to say, hey, I want you to push your feet into the floor. But something that's out of the box, right out of the box, it's ready to go, is stand up fast.
Yeah.
Some of the cues that require some setup. What do you have one that comes to mind for you that, like, it's a cue that will work, but you have to get some understanding established?
I think one that I kind of come back to that's relevant, especially so I work with a lot of beginners, and ultimately they end up staying around for a long time and then become pretty good, proficient at kettlebells and stuff. And one is like patience, right? So it's like, hey, you need to be more patient in this, and out of the box. Does that really resonate? Not necessarily. So you have to set that up, and so in order to set that up,
Well, I'm not going to say not necessarily. It's a great cue that without setup is utterly ridiculous.
exactly. So
It makes zero sense.
In this sense, like, to set that up, you have to explain to them where each position needs to be. What does that look like? So you have your leg drive, and then that transfers the force into your arms to bring the bell, in the case of a swing or whatever, away from your body. And then you need to be patient again to wait for it to get back to your body and let your arms reintegrate, then to move, repeat the cycle. And so first you have to teach them that, and then work on that and work on pieces of that, and then it starts to click, and then you use the video, and this is sort of like the process I go through, and then you can say, like, oh, see, like, here's where you're bending a little too soon, so just be more patient.
So if your arms aren't connecting to your body before you move into your backswing, that's what you mean
by
in that
patient.
particular. So he's had a conversation with someone. He set that up. That person understands what he means. He's also identified a specific problem with form, and it could be he could use patience in another context, but he's already had that conversation. So some cues require some setup, some do not. That one does. It's an excellent cue, but it does require setup because otherwise it's absolutely
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's
Patients like
okay, like waiting for what?
Yeah,
What am I being patient for? Christmas Eve or something?
So we've got different types of cues. You know, stand and fast versus patience. Core tight is another one.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are some cues that will ask someone to feel a particular sensation, and I think it's a bad idea to use that without having them feel that sensation. You know, kettlebells are obsessed with lats.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Use your lat. Use your lat. Okay. Whatever that means. Now, I've been doing this a long time, and it's not easy to get people to feel their lats. Most people have no idea.
I just felt your lat.
You can
Creepy.
Most people can't contract them. So if I'm going to do that, which I almost never do, but if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have someone use the muscle actions and get them to feel that contraction. And then when I get them to do that weird crampy thing that I do, then I need to put it in the context of the movement.
How does it apply?
Well, I'm not, I will have someone take their arm, rotate it in, move it back, and do like this. I don't know of any kettlebell skills that require the arm to go back.
It's like if you put a mannequin in the wrong position.
Sure.
You know.
So I have someone feel the lat, like, oh, I really feel that. Okay, well, can you feel it when your arm is here or when your arm is here? We need to be able to do that. So there's some steps. There's some steps to using these cues, and when you either hear your coach or where you are a coach and you're saying, hey, use your lat. If you haven't set that up, you're just wasting everybody's time.
Yeah.
So
first of all, do they even know what a lat is? I mean,
Sure.
like, let's be honest. Like, we as coaches tend to, going back to the language thing, think that everybody knows what we're talking about, and so you may want to establish that from the get-go. Like, do you want to know some more about your muscles, or what do you want to know? How deep you want to go, and then we'll establish our communication. Yeah.
As a coach, do you know where the lat is? Do you know what it does? Do you know origins?
Did you know it connects to the arm?
Do you know how to make people feel it? So, really think about that, because we tend to we memorize these scripts, and I watch videos, I watch other people coaching, and very commonly people will just repeat the same stuff. Like, the kettlebell swing is a hip hinge and you should stand with your feet.
It's a fast deadlift. What?
Like, you hear this script, and I don't think these people are dumb. I think they just haven't, I don't think they've ever thought about it.
Yeah,
I don't think they've ever questioned what this actually means. I don't think they've taken the extra step and say, okay, well, you're telling me to use my lat, but where is it? What does it do? And how might that actually help my swing or my press or whatever? So, what are some common ones? What are some common cues that you hear?
There's the ever-present and prevalent.
Yeah, there we go.
Squeeze your butt cheeks.
Okay.
Okay. Or squeeze your glutes. We like to say the word glutes instead of like tighten your ass.
Well, maybe you do, but okay.
What? Tighten my ass.
So what do you think is a cue? What's the point?
I think it kind of probably.
Well, do you use it?
I don't particularly use it. Like, not in this. I guess it depends.
Okay.
That's always a good answer for coaches. I'll save your ass many times. It depends. So if I want somebody to, if I'm having a hard time, let's say the stand-up fast isn't working and they're not standing up fast enough, and if I say like, squeeze your glutes and flex your quads a little bit more, sometimes that requires somebody to like recruit more muscles, and thus might make them stand up faster.
Sure.
So in that sort of sense, I would use it, and I think a lot of times people use it in the way of like, I'm going to make this as tight as possible to create this hard style. And remember, we're talking about hard style kettlebells, this hard style, tight plank at the top where everything is engaged and you're really wrenching on your body. But as we've seen and we've experimented, and I think we can agree that like you don't necessarily need to squeeze your butt super tight, because ultimately you're probably moving your hips too far forward and stressing out probably parts of the low back. And this is minutia of anatomy, but that's sort of where I come at from that squeeze your glutes.
Well, and you can't, your glutes, when your glutes are actually active in the movement, is not at the top of the movement.
Right.
So you're a little late to the party.
Oh man.
So I will use it. It's not one I like, but it's one I will use very infrequently if someone is having issues with back pain. It gives them something to focus on. It gives them something to make sure that they're really following through in the movement,
Yeah.
and that little extra stiffness can be helpful. One that I hear a lot that I'm not a super fan of, can work sometimes, is chest up during a squat. And what will often happen with the chest up is someone will actually poke their chest out. They'll disengage from the midsection, and you'll encourage movement through the spine. That's what I see happen 99 out of 100 times. But there are some people who, their eyes are down and they're not engaged in the exercise. And sometimes you can say, you can try chin up, which usually moves the chest, but sometimes they just do that.
Yeah.
So you can say chest up and chest up. I use chest down actually quite a bit for a squat.
Chest down.
Well, a lot of people think that, so let's say this is the squat. A lot of people, when they squat down, they try to go straight down and they don't have the range. So when I say chest down, this is the head that way.
Okay.
When I say chest down, it allows the hips to move back.
Yeah, because that does need to happen. Yeah.
That does need to happen. It depends on the degree. Different people squat different ways, but I use chest down quite a bit because that's something that people can they have a physical sense of where their chest is and just point that thing to the ground. Now sometimes I'll get a back arch, which means I've got a different cue to use. So there aren't any I know that work all the time, but there are some things that I think you should think about. Specifically, what is the end result, and are you using a cue that is just part of a script that really doesn't make sense? Have you contextualized? Have you explained to yourself? Do you know what it is you're doing when you're doing a swing and you're thinking, you're all proud of yourself and you're telling your family like, oh, a swing is a hip hinge, it's not a squat. Like, what is a hip hinge?
Yeah.
Because most coaches I know don't have a great explanation.
Some people don't even know how to hip hinge.
So it's not always as simple. What's one other one that you get?
One that I get, or one that I sort of like, I think is important, has to do with the eyes, right? Mm-hmm. So I like to help people understand that more or less where your eyes are positioned is sort of how your body's going to be positioned to an extent, right? So if your eyes are down, you're going to be in this flex position. You may not be able to, and again in a swing or whatever it is, you're going to end up in a place where you're not able to get to the exact form that is optimal.
Sure.
And I'll use that a lot, like, setup. And this one is probably one that requires some setup as well, like with some eye targets, so to speak, like some eye targets down below, an eye target up top, or in the case of a get up, if you're in the get up and you start to look down to the ground where your hand's going to go, then your bell's going to slide forward. And these sort of things I think are like, if you use this type of cueing, it can help your people a little bit as well.
Sure. Eye targets are great. Eyes up, eyes down. That's pretty close to kind of one of those out of the box cues where you don't always get the desired result, but it's going to elicit some sort of
you get them closer
response.
and then
absolutely
tweak it a little now.
Yeah. So someone's staring at the ground during a swing and you say eyes up or look over there.
Look out.
You'll often get movement that changes immediately. Now, is it the right change? I don't know, but an immediate movement change based on minimal words is a good cue. So I like those.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is the cues, going all the way back to the start, is relevant to how you set it up and the communication you have with your person. So we could go on and on and on about this cue and that cue, but if you can't get somebody to do it, the cue obviously isn't working. So have a few cues and a few different options. And again, like one of the ways where I coach a lot of people via video. So via Zoom or through videos they've sent me. And the best way that I've been able to develop certain cues is, one, understand the person, and two, I use those videos because I'm not actually there to be able to help put my hands on you and like physically put you in the position. So I think about, using like an athletic stance is a cue that I like show me athletic stance, like have you ever played football? Okay, yeah, you have. Okay, would you ever play football with your head down to the top of your head? No. Okay, well, show me.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. Okay. In fact, like they made a bunch of rules so you don't do it. But they sort of things. So it's really one, subject to what you know and what the person in front of you knows, right?
Well, I got one last thing.
Okay, one last. That's it.
One last thing. Getting louder should not change your movement outcome. If you're repeating a cue and it's not working, saying
Just
it
yelling
louder isn't going to do the job.
Okay, noted. Let's just take this down. Yeah, we've worked in a gym together.
So
That's right.
maybe say it once, maybe say it twice. If it's not working,
Put the bell down.
volume is not the problem. Try something else.
And just counting reps is not a cue. Noted, coach. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right. So practice your cues. Download the Bells app. And if
do
you'd
dumb
like
shit.
to be cued by us, you can join us.
No.
You know.
Okay.
We have a kettlebell club.
Oh, we do?
Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. Pacific. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right. I'm not going to say that again. That's it. Stay
Okay.
strong.